All right, everyone, so still six-handed in the Big Bet Mixed Tournament. This is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll go ahead and link it up above. First hand we get involved in here is Ace, King, Queen, 3, single suit in the big blind. We're playing some PLO. Folds over to Yuval, who makes it 56K. Folds over to me, and Yuval has about 42K behind. And if you don't know of him, he's a bit of a local legend here. He's won 10 of these Seminole Hard Rock trophies, which puts him at third all time. So anytime you could potentially eliminate a crusher such as Yuval, you definitely go for the opportunity. So I raised enough to put him all in, and he of course makes the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. He turns over the Ace, King, 9-9 double suited. We go to a flop of Queen 9-6 with 2 spades. Turn brings a 10 of diamonds, bringing the backdoor flush draw. So we're going to need some help here. River does not give us any help with an 8 of clubs, so Yuval is going to double up here. The very next hand, we're still playing PLO, and I look down at Queen 10, 8-7, single suit in the small blind. Folds over to Zen on the button, who makes the call. I do the same. Folds over to Thor in the big blind, who checks. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes Jack 9-5 rainbow. I check, Thor checks, over to Zen, who bets 24K. And I don't really think he has much here. Obviously, he's going to bet this flop with a very high frequency, being on the button versus the 2 blinds. So I pot it. Over to Thor, who tanks for a while to my surprise, and he probably tanks over about a minute and a half before eventually folding, and Zen quickly folds as well. So we're going to take this one down, but we actually went on break right after this hand, and Thor asked me if I had it, and I just gave him a little smirk, and he tells me he folded bottom set. So definitely happy to take this one down. Couple hands after we get back from break, we're now playing pot limit deuce to 7 triple draw. I get dealt the 8-7-5-3-2 in the hijack. Folds to me, I make it 45K, and only Yuval makes the call. So we're going heads up to the first draw. I of course stand pat. Yuval draws 2, and he has a little bit under a pot size bet, so I just put out a stack of chips, betting enough to put him all in. And he ends up tanking for quite a while before eventually making the call. So we're going heads up to a couple more draws. I stand pat once again. This time he draws 1. Going to the final draw, I stand pat again. He draws 1 more time. And being all in, we end up turning over the hands. He sees that I have the made 8-7. He turns over the 5-4-3 deuce. So he's drawing to either an 8 or a 7 to win the hand. And he ends up squeezing out, luckily for us, a 5. So Yuval is going to finish in 6th place. 10 minutes after the previous hand, blinds are now up. We're playing Hold'em when I get dealt the King 7 of diamonds in the small blind. Folds to me, and Thor has under 100K, so under 6 big blinds total. So I just announce all in, and he quickly makes the call. He ends up turning over the Ace 10, so we're going heads up to a run out. Flop comes down Jack 7-5 with 2 hearts. Turn seals the deal with another 7. River's a meaningless 8, and Thor's going to finish in 5th place. A couple hands later, we're still playing Hold'em when I look down at the Jack 10 offsuit in the cutoff. Folds to me, I make a 50. Folds over to Zen in the small blind, who makes the call, and Donnie in the big blind folds. So we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes down 10-6 deuce with 2 hearts. Zen checks. I bet 120, and Zen quickly folds. So we're going to take this one down. Couple hands later, Donnie's all in with a set of 9s against Josh's set of 10s. They both fill up on the river, and Donnie finishes in 4th place. Shortly after the previous hand, we're playing Big O, and I look down at the Ace 8 6-6-5 single suit in the big blind. Zen completes in the small blind. I check my option. We're going heads up to a flop. Flop comes down 10-4-3 rainbow. Zen checks. I bet 30K. He quickly pots it to 150 and back over to me. I ended up tanking for a while here. I believe if he had ace deuce, he would have raised pre-flop. So my ace 5 figures to be the best low draw. Obviously I do have some scoop outs. A deuce would give me nut, a 7 would give me nut, second nut. But I guess in the moment I just kind of thought that I could have picked a better spot. So definitely curious to know down in the comments what you guys would have done with this hand, but I ended up folding. About 15 minutes after the previous hand, we're now playing Hold'em. It's about 2 in the morning when I look down at the ace queen offsuit on the button. I make it 60K, folds over to Zen in the big blind, who makes the call. So we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes down 9-5 deuce with 2 spades. Zen checks. I see bet for 80K. Zen takes a couple seconds, and I kind of know what's about to happen when he announces all in, and back over to me. I asked the dealer for a count, which he tells me is 360K. I don't know Zen personally, but I played with him a couple times in Vegas. Definitely a very aggressive, strong opponent. Not a person you want to give a bunch of chips to. So leading up to this, when we got to 3-handed, I think he had about 300K, and obviously he would have about 600K here if I fold. So I ended up tanking for about 3 minutes, and I'm not going to play that entire 3 minutes here for you guys, but I'm just going to show some of my thought processes during the hand.
I feel like you just have a flush draw. Call.
You have sevens?
No. I knew I made a right read. I knew he had a flush draw.
Yes.
Nice hand, Wayne.
So somehow, some way, I make the soul read and dodge a million outs, and Josh and I are now playing heads up. With 6,600 locked up, I'm thinking about the trophy. We're playing deuce 7 single draw. When I look down at jack 9 742 on the button, I make it 70k and Josh makes the call. He decides to draw 1. I stand pat. On Josh to make a decision, and he decides to shove everything in the middle. And he was obviously drawing 2 better than a jack. It's just a matter of if he's bluffing, maybe he paired, maybe he hit a king or queen and is turning that into a bluff. I end up tanking for a little bit, but decide to fold and pick a better spot. Josh ends up turning over a made 10, so he's going to take down the first hand of heads up play. Shortly after the previous hand, we're still on deuce 7 single draw. When I look down at jack 9 542 on the button, I again make it 70k. Josh makes the call. He ends up discarding 1. I stand pat. This time he bets 130, and it definitely feels like value, which is kind of what I say in the moment. But I end up paying him off, and he ends up turning over the 97643. So he once again is going to take down another hand here. Shortly after the previous hand, we're now playing pot limit Badoogie. When I look down at ace king queen 10 in the big blind, Josh calls. I check my option. I end up discarding 3, just keeping the ace. Josh discards 2. I check after getting a 7 8 and a deuce. Josh bets 60k. Still need 2 cards, but I do have the nut 2 card hand with ace deuce, so I call. I discard 2. He ends up discarding 1. I check. He ends up betting 210k, and I fold. So Josh once again is chipping up here heads up. So it's not looking good for me here. Josh has pretty much won every hand heads up and now has a 2-1 chip lead on me. We're still playing pot limit Doogie when I look down at queen 854 in the big blind. Josh makes it 65k, back over to me. So I'm just continuing to bleed chips here, so I just have to take a stand. So I repot it to 195. Josh thinks a bit and shoves over the top. I, of course, make the call, and we're going heads up to 3 draws. Josh doesn't like it and says, well, I'm on the button, so you got to decide first. And I tell him, no, I'm drawing. So he goes, oh, I'm pat, and ends up turning over the 9873. And I obviously show the 8 draw. And he tells me that he's not going to redraw. So if I end up hitting the hand, then I just win. So we agree to have the dealer turn the cards up, and she tosses me the 6 of diamonds. So no sweating. We double up here and now have a 2-1 chip lead. I end up winning a couple small pots to extend my chip lead. When we're playing Big O, I look down at king, queen, 4, deuce, deuce in the big blind. Josh calls. I check my option, and we're going to a flop. The flop comes down queen 8-5 with 2 clubs. I check with the intention of check potting. Josh bets 90k. I stick to the plan and pot it to 360. Josh calls all in for less, and we're going heads up to a run out. Josh ends up turning over the queen 10 943. The turn brings a 10 of clubs, bringing in the front door flush. So all we have to do is fade the queen 10 or deuce on the river, and the trophy is ours. River brings a 3 of diamonds, so no help to Josh, and somehow, some way, we take it down. First off, just wanted to thank everyone on Instagram who congratulated me after I posted this in real time. I really appreciate all the support. Also, thanks to Josh. He's definitely been a big part of me kind of getting into tournaments first off, but then also learning different tournament strategy. In fact, a couple years ago when I played one of my first PLO tournaments up in LA, I actually was chatting with him for about 45 minutes on my drive up, and using some of the strategies he shared with me, I actually ended up winning that one. So that was really cool. Also wanted to thank Jason and his team. I've mentioned this in the past, but You know, really the Hard Rock Hollywood team, they do one of the best jobs in the country running these mixed game series every 3 months. With the exception of the series, they definitely have the best mixed games in the country. So if you haven't already checked them out, do yourself a favor. Their next series will be at the end of July, beginning of August. So do yourself a favor and come on down for that. And Josh and I, a couple days after this, ended up chatting for about 10 to 11 minutes, just kind of about our experience playing heads up and all the different things that go along with that. So I'll put a link up above here to check that video out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.